Hey guys, welcome back to another week of Food in Common. Because we have so much kale in the railway garden, we got a bit inspired and are thinking up 10,000 ways to use kale, which I promise is more delicious than it sounds. So Maddie, this week what are we cooking?
Doing a Filo pie with pumpkin, kale and feta cheese.
So very excited for that. I know a few of you requested we do a Greek, like spanakopita style pie. This is a great way to add even more veg into it.
Yeah.
And yeah, look forward to seeing the final result from Maddie while I get to go and sit down and have a cup of tea.
Alright, so we're going to start by chopping our red onions into a dice, which obviously we do every week. So just dice your red onion into a shape like this, and if you don't have any red onions, using brown onion is also fine. After we cut the onion, we're going to peel and cut the pumpkin into bite-sized pieces. This really doesn't have to be perfect little cubes, just because it's going into the pie and it's going to be cooked down anyway, so you won't know. So don't stress about it being perfect. Get all the seeds out. And then when you're peeling something like this, obviously it can be a little bit dangerous. So you want to cut it in half. Make sure it's on a flat surface so that it can stand up and you're less likely to slip and cut yourself. And then sort of just glide the knife down the edges like this. It's relatively painless. And then for cutting it up, just into quarters, and then each piece into a little cube like this. And then for a bigger piece like that, just cut it in half and then cut into cubes. So you're going to add your onion to a regular sized pan with about 3 tablespoons of olive oil. And then we're going to saute these until they're translucent and soft for about 5 to 8-ish minutes. And then we're going to add the pumpkin. So next we're going to get our kale and remove it from the thickest bit of the stem. So these stems up here is fine because it'll cook down and you won't really notice it. But these thicker stems at the bottom don't taste excellent and aren't the nicest to eat. And then all you're going to do is just pick it off. And then once you've picked all of your kale, give it a nice wash because it often has dirt inside the leaves just because they're such small and intricate leaves. And then we're going to roughly chop it up. Okay, so once your kale is nice and clean, you're just going to run the knife through it and cut it up like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. You're not even going to really be able to tell once it's inside the pie. You just want it to be in nice bite-sized pieces so it's not too tough and chewy, and so that it's evenly distributed through the pie. Okay, so the onion's looking nice and soft now. We're going to add the bits of pumpkin going to stir it in, and then we're going to let it sit for about 10 minutes until the pumpkin starts to soften, and then I'm going to take it off of the heat. So next up, I'm just going to roughly chop this rosemary from George's garden. You can use thyme or any other hard herb that's in your garden right now or that you prefer. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to run the knife over until it's in smallish pieces. And we're going to add this to our pumpkin mixture. And while I'm waiting on the pumpkin to cook, I'm just going to get ready by grating 100 grams of Parmesan or any hard cheese that you happen to have in your fridge is also fine. I'm also going to zest a lime. The recipe says lemon, which is also fine. You can use either. And I'm going to crack these eggs into a bowl. So once your pumpkin starts to soften a little bit and you can sort of mush it with the wooden spoon, just add a little bit of chili if you like chili, and the rosemary that you chopped up or thyme. And we're just gonna let that cool for now. Okay, so once your pumpkin is nice and cool, you're going to add 2 eggs to the mixture, your kale. Now this looks like a lot of kale, so I might only add half of the bunch that I chopped up. Yeah, I think that's about right. And then I'm gonna add the cheese that I grated and some of the lime zest. You're just gonna mix all of this together. Now the reason that we made sure the pumpkin fully cooled down before we did this step was so that it didn't cook the eggs, because then you would have sort of like yucky scrambled eggs in your mixture instead of letting them cook in the pie like they're supposed to. And then the last thing you're going to do to the mixture is just season with some salt and pepper. You want to be relatively generous because kale requires quite a bit of salt to make it taste good. And then once everything's mixed together, we're gonna make our pie. Okay, so to make the pie, just drizzle a little bit of egg and milk mixture, which I've whisked together on the bottom of your pan. Then you're going to put the sheet down, and you want to leave these edges sticking out. Just drizzle between each layer just a little bit of this egg mixture just to make sure everything sticks together, and sort of rub it along it. This definitely doesn't have to be perfect, so don't worry about tears and things like that. So just keep going, I reckon, for about 8 layers. And then just for 1 layer or 1 or 2 layers, I'm going to do one across this way so that we have something to fold over on each side. All right, so now I'm gonna pour the filling in. This is actually quite a bit of filling, and this dish isn't very deep. So if you have a deeper dish at home, definitely use that. Otherwise, I can just turn this into a second pie in a different dish, which I think is what I'm going to do. Just spread your mix out. And then get your feta or goat's cheese, depending on which one you decided to use in this recipe. Crumble it all over the top. And then all you're going to do is just sort of gently fold the Filo pastry over the edges, but you want to leave the middle exposed because it's sort of like an open pie. And then I'm just going to drizzle some of the egg and milk over the edge of the Filo pastry. And then you're going to bake that in the oven for about 25 to 30 minutes until it's... Okay, this is our pie after about 30 to 35 minutes. As you can see, everything's golden brown and crispy, and the kale has wilted a little bit and is nice and cooked, and it's ready to eat.